when hundreds of Austin renters marched down Congress Avenue, chanting that housing is a human right. $2,800 for a one-bedroom is theft, and we can't afford to live here anymore. Texas has no rent control laws, meaning landlords can raise prices however they wish. Austin became the poster child for extreme rent escalation, rising 22% in a single year and, according to some data sources like Redfin, spiking as high as 40% year over year during its peak. Statewide rents are forecasted to rise 6.3% this year, with studios increasing 5.9% to reach a median of $1,384. One-bedrooms are projected to rise 5.3%, and two-bedrooms nearly 4.8%. One of the most defining moments of the Texas rental crisis came in August 2024 during the Affordable Unlocked March. Austin's Congress Avenue, filled with renters demanding meaningful action, not symbolic gestures. Instead of addressing renter concerns directly, Abbott held a carefully controlled press conference in Denton on the 2nd of February 2025, far from the demonstrations. Surrounded only by Republican lawmakers, business leaders, homeowners, and developers, but renters received no benefit at all. Abbott didn't mention rent once during the announcement. That many working Texans now live in cars, overcrowded apartments, or far-flung suburbs due to soaring housing costs. Heading into the critical 2026 elections, as more Texans wake up to what's happening, rental prices have become a breaking point for millions across the United States. And nowhere is that pressure more visible than in Texas, where renters are openly confronting a system that has pushed their budgets to the edge. A new report from Harvard's Joint Center for Housing Studies shows that half of all American renters now spend more than 30% of their income just to keep a roof over their heads. In August 2024, that strain erupted publicly when hundreds of Austin renters marched down Congress Avenue, chanting that housing is a human right. With 37% of Texans, over 9 million people, renting their homes, the pressure is everywhere, and anger continues to build as renters face increases of 20% to 40% without any state-level protections, fueling a movement that is only gaining momentum as communities demand change while more Texans begin paying attention. Across Texas, the average monthly rent now lands around $1,894, and in high-demand urban centers, it climbs far higher. Wage growth hasn't come close to keeping up. Someone earning $55,000 in 2020 may barely reach $60,000 by 2025, about a 9% bump, while their rent has jumped anywhere from 30% to 50%, as housing consumes more of their paychecks than ever. Austin's rental market became the nation's cautionary tale as demand surged from tech workers, remote employees relocating from high-cost states, and investors seeking profitable returns. Between 2020 and 2022, the city experienced rent increases so steep that they destabilized the working class entirely. Even individuals earning what should be considered stable middle-class incomes, like $70,000 a year, were suddenly allocating 40% to 50% of their gross earnings to housing. After taxes, some were devoting 60% of take-home pay just to keep an apartment. Teachers making $55,000 couldn't find one-bedrooms without roommates. Nurses earning $65,000 relocated to suburbs, 30 miles or more away. Service workers making $35,000 were forced to leave Austin entirely. The crisis radiated outward into surrounding cities, Pflugerville, Round Rock, Georgetown, where rents soon followed Austin's upward trajectory, deepening the affordability emergency and reshaping the entire region. After years of relentless increases, something unexpected happened. Austin's supply pipeline hit the market all at once. Developers had spent the boom years racing to build new units, and by 2023-2024, those projects began finishing in massive waves. With thousands of new apartments available simultaneously, the market shifted almost overnight. Vacancy rates ballooned from 3.96% in September 2021 to 9.92% by April 2025, a stunning 150% increase. Landlords, for the first time in years, had to compete for tenants instead of the other way around. That competition triggered a wave of concessions. 1 month, free rent, waived deposits, reduced application fees, lower pet fees, and even rent reductions on older units struggling to attract interest. Yet this relief was isolated. While Austin adjusted downward, most other Texas metros continued rising. Dallas, Houston, and San Antonio all experienced sustained increases. By 2025, Austin's correction became the exception rather than the rule statewide, signaling that the broader crisis was merely shifting rather than disappearing, strengthening the resolve of renters demanding long-term protections rather than temporary relief. Texas, renters faced a far tougher reality. Statewide rent prices have continued rising, with almost no signs of slowing down. Texas rents are projected to grow 6.3% in 2025, surpassing the national average increase of roughly 4.8%. Studios are expected to climb to a median of $1,384, while one-bedrooms reach $1,259, and two-bedrooms land at a median fair market rent of $1,153. Dallas saw a 5% jump within just 6 months during 2024. Houston rents inched upward year after year. San Antonio trended higher as well. The statewide average hit $1,894 by 2025, placing heavy pressure on households, earning Texas's median income of around $68,000 before taxes. With take-home pay closer to $50,000, a renter paying $1,500 to $1,900 per month is losing $18,000 to $22,800 a year to housing alone, consuming nearly half their disposable income. For lower-income service workers making $30,000 to $40,000, the burden often climbs to 60% or even 70%, leaving them one emergency away from homelessness. Even middle-income earners, teachers, nurses, police officers aren't spared, reinforcing that this crisis reaches every corner of Texas and continues to intensify. Landlords can legally raise rent from $1,200 to $1,800 overnight, a sudden 50% jump with no renovation, no improvement, and no justification required beyond what the market allows. This freedom has made Texas a magnet for investors seeking high returns, which compounds the problem for everyday renters. The lack of regulatory guardrails shifts all leverage to property owners, leaving renters vulnerable to dramatic increases that far exceed wage growth. As rent hikes compound year after year, tenants find themselves trapped between either accepting the increase or uprooting their entire lives. These legal constraints are why activists consistently call for reform, but the state legislature has shown no interest in revisiting the ban. As long as the prohibition remains in place, renters have no structural protection from sudden spikes. It wasn't just a display of anger, it was a highly coordinated demonstration with organized leadership, clear demands, and a united message. Representative Greg Abbott marched alongside tenants, highlighting proposals he has long pushed for federal rent control measures, stronger eviction protections, and increased funding for affordable housing. Protesters carried signs calling out the absurdity of paying $2,800 on a $60,000 salary and exposing how workers are being priced out of the very communities they build. Their demands included stabilizing rent increases at 3% to 5% annually, implementing just cause eviction rules, empowering tenant unions to negotiate collectively, and building truly affordable units priced between $900 and $1,200. Abbott announced a new round of property tax cuts. Framed as a major affordability initiative, the plan included raising the homestead exemption from $100,000 to $140,000 under Senate Bill 4, expanding exemptions for seniors and disabled homeowners under Senate Bill 23, and reducing business property taxes through House Bill 9. For homeowners, the savings were meaningful, often between $800 and $1,200 annually. Critics immediately pointed out that the governor was offering relief to people who already owned property, while ignoring the 9 million Texans renting homes. Abbott called it a deliberate dismissal of renters' struggles. Tenant groups in cities across Texas labeled it a betrayal. Abbott's political strategy is clear. Homeowners vote at higher rates, and landlords and developers form a major donor base. Renters, historically, do not turn out in the same numbers, making their needs politically expendable. In current state leadership's calculations, the crisis becomes even clearer when viewed through the lives of everyday Texans. Jessica, a Dallas fourth-grade teacher earning $56,000, once rented comfortably at $1,000, $1,100 in 2020. Over the next 5 years, her rent rose to $2,100. Despite spotless payment history, she received no improvements in return, just annual increases because the market allowed it. By 2025, she was forced into a smaller, less safe unit for $1,750, eating nearly half her take-home pay. Miguel, a line cook in Austin making $42,000, watched his studio rise from $950 to $1,850 before fleeing to Pflugerville, now commuting 40 minutes each way while working 2 jobs. Sarah, a Houston ICU nurse earning $72,000, faced a 2-bedroom rent climbing from $1,400 to $2,100 as home prices and interest rates locked her out of buying. Carlos, a San Antonio police officer making $58,000, saw his rent jump 50% since 2020 and now can't afford to live close to the community he serves. Their experiences reveal how widespread and crushing the burden has become, cutting across professions and regions with destructive precision as renters struggle to stay afloat. These individual hardships reflect a deeper political divide that Texas leadership has yet to acknowledge. Homeowners form a reliable voting bloc. Older, more established, consistently engaged, and deeply invested in protecting property values. They show up on election day without fail, and policies like property tax cuts directly appeal to them. Renters, on the other hand, are typically younger, frequently moving, juggling long work hours, and navigating voter ID challenges. Their turnout is historically lower, and for decades, political strategists have assumed they're not worth prioritizing. That mindset shapes the state's unwillingness to confront the rental crisis or challenge property interests. Yet something is shifting. The protests, tenant unions, and grassroots organizing show renters becoming more politically active than ever. Federal proposals like the Rent Relief Act and Ending Homelessness Act offer potential pathways toward a new policy landscape, while local movements pressure city councils to push for state-level authority to regulate rents. Still, the Republican-controlled legislature stands firmly against rent regulation, citing free market principles regardless of the consequences. This political stalemate leaves renters bearing the cost of inaction, with economic pressures intensifying as wages stagnate and housing costs continue their upward march, creating a tension that is reshaping Texas's political landscape whether state leaders recognize it or not. By late 2025, the landscape for Texas renters remains divided and unstable. Austin's rents may have eased after years of unsustainable growth, but Dallas, Houston, and San Antonio continue upward trends that stretch budgets thin. With statewide median rents climbing and no rent control or tenant protections in place, renters remain vulnerable to abrupt increases that can derail their finances. Overnight, grassroots organizing continues, though with less media coverage than the headline-grabbing 2024 protests. Tenant unions in Dallas meet monthly to build collective power. Houston organizers negotiate directly with landlords. San Antonio activists pressure local officials to lobby for state-level authority. Meanwhile, Governor Abbott continues showcasing property tax cuts as proof of affordability improvements, using Austin's recent declines to suggest his approach is working, even though those declines stemmed from oversupply, not policy intervention. He continues celebrating economic growth and population influx while sidestepping the reality. This story is still unfolding, the tension rising, and the consequences becoming harder to ignore, especially as renters continue organizing, speaking out, and building momentum heading into the critical 2026 elections as more Texans wake up to what's happening and subscribe so they don't miss what comes next.